Hello, welcome to the Healthy Alternatives podcast. I am Dr. Christine Sauer with DocChristine.com. Today's show is a recording of my radio show of the same name. Enjoy! Good afternoon, this is Dr. Christine Sauer, your host of the show Healthy Alternatives here on 97.5 CIOE FM with live stream on communityradio.ca every Thursday at 12 noon Atlantic Standard Time. Thanks for tuning in today. In this show, I will talk mostly with guests about all aspects of health, healthcare and wellness, from conventional to alternative and everything in between. My mission for this show is to help change people's lives for the better by informing them about different options to get and stay healthy and well, so they can choose for themselves which option might work in their case. And if you're stuck in a dark place, I want to tell you there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Today, I'm happy to be with Donna Lugar, Nova Scotia representative of the Canadian Lyme Disease Foundation, and she heads also up the local Lyme disease support group. Welcome, Donna, to the show.
Welcome. Thank you.
I'm very honored to have you here. And a question I always ask is, how did you get into Lyme disease? And I know you're very knowledgeable about it.
I'm very tenacious, I guess, in my research. But in probably early 2001, my health started to decline, and I went several years without any diagnosis, going to a variety of doctors, going for a variety of tests. Nothing really was being diagnosed. In early 2013, I had one little diagnosis which didn't quite make sense for me. To me, it was like a TMJ, which was like a lockjaw or whatever. And, there was the suggestion I was grinding my teeth, but my teeth weren't worn down. My husband wouldn't hear anything at night as far as that. And I did get a bite plate, and it didn't resolve the issue. So I just started doing some research and, kind of put symptoms online, and out came Lyme disease. And I found the Canadian Lyme Disease Foundation. They have a symptom list, and I checked off everything that applied. Had over 40 symptoms at the time that were listed on that list. And I kind of just had an aha moment, and went to my GP and went for the tests that they do here, and came back negative. Anyway, since that time, I've done a lot more research. I've had some treatment by a doctor that used to practice in Nova Scotia. But I found very quickly upon my aha moment that there were many people in my maybe not immediate circle, but that were somehow related to me or connected to me that had already been dealing with Lyme as well. And it just became I just became very aware that it's not rare in this province. It's not hard to get, and it's not easy to treat. There were a lot of people at various stages. One person had required a pacemaker. Other people had left the province, left the country for treatment. So I realized at that time that this is quite an unbelievably unknown illness, and more awareness was required, more information was required, and I just kind of took it on as almost like a job that I needed to try to do more to let people know that it is a big issue in this province.
And I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that with you, because my husband had his own experience with Lyme disease. He came one day out of his shower in 2006 and had a ring on his thigh. And as a dermatologist in Germany, I told him, that's Lyme disease, we have to get you antibiotic. And what a fight I had to get him what he needed. So I hear where you're coming from. If I hadn't fought for him, he would have never got it. And I think still some doctors here are not very aware of Lyme disease, and that it does not always go ahead with it. So tell us a little bit about the symptoms and how do people get it? Is it just the ticks, as we are told, the black-legged deer ticks?
Well, there's a lot of research going on. And there's research over in Europe that they have found the bacteria in mosquitoes, but they haven't proven that it's actually been able to transmit to people yet. So right now, as far as in Nova Scotia is concerned, black-legged ticks are the issue. We don't know anymore at this point. The symptoms vary from person to person, and that's basically where the issue is. If you don't present with the stereotypical bullseye rash, or if you don't see the tick bite, it's very difficult to get a diagnosis. And it's actually quite rare to get the stereotypical bullseye rash. And it's almost like we say, oh, you've won the lottery if you get that, because that's a definitive diagnosis. But the majority of people I speak to on a day-to-day basis, they never saw the tick bite. They never saw the bullseye rash. Now, they may have had it, but it could have been on their back or somewhere where they didn't see. It could have been under their hair. So, with that, it's if you don't have those, then it gets very problematic, because the symptoms are then very similar to many other illnesses. Like they're flu-like. There's aches and pains. There's, could be stiff neck. There could be a lot of different things. And as I said, the one person that I know of that required a pacemaker, that was their only symptom. The heart was the only symptom they had. They didn't have any of the other ones at all. So it does get very difficult. Doctors are not overly aware of the variety of symptoms available, and it's very hard.
And I think also many doctors are not aware that patients travel all over the world and not necessarily remember getting bit by a tick.
Exactly. And ticks in other areas carry different things. So the knowledge isn't there. In Nova Scotia alone, we're aware of about 4 or 5 different co-infections that have been found in ticks. But if you ask a doctor, most of them, I'm going to say, over 90% of them would not have a clue what you're talking about if you start talking about the variety of co-infections like the Bartonella and the Rickettsia and
Babesia and
they just don't know what you're talking about.
And sometimes even infectious disease specialists won't at least tell publicly about all the different diseases because they don't want the people to get upset.
I don't know if it's that they don't want to get them upset, or even they themselves aren't aware of everything that is here. Our Nova Scotia tick-borne disease responses plan does mention a couple of the possible co-infections, but Dalhousie's doing research, and they've come up with a few more that have never made it, as far as I know of, have never made it in the tick-borne diseases response plan, hasn't made it online. So it's information that Dalhousie has and knows, but it's not out there for the public. So they discovered that over approximately 70% of ticks that they tested, and that's not just black-legged ticks, that's also dog ticks, carry around 70% carry Bartonella, and about 30% are carrying Rickettsia. You don't see that information anywhere. So this research is being done, but the information is not getting out to the general public.
And I know they don't want to make the general public all upset and scared of going outside, because that's not good either. So what would you recommend from your knowledge? What do people really do to prevent getting bit by a tick? What makes sense?
They say tuck your pants in your socks and do all that. But as soon as weather gets nice in Nova Scotia, Nova Scotians start to take their clothes off. They enjoy the heat. They enjoy being outside. So, the biggest thing is, if you're in tick areas, which is basically anywhere in Nova Scotia now, you just, keep brushing yourself off while you're out and about. Shake your hair and your head and keep on doing that. And then when you do get home, you can take your clothes off, throw them in the dryer at high heat, and that'll kill the ticks on it. But jump in the shower and wash off any ticks that may not yet be attached, and then do thorough tick checks. Really, we have to start making that a very routine daily event if we spend any time outside. They're here to stay. They can't terrify us. We need to still enjoy life. We still need to go outside and do our gardening and having fun, but we do have to start taking them seriously. It's not, Lyme isn't just a rash and flu-like symptoms. It's it can progress to so much more. So we just have to take care of ourselves.
I agree. And it's not just, as you said, the Lyme disease, it's associated diseases that also can make you quite sick and are not easily recognized. And I know myself, if you don't do the tick check thoroughly and even run your fingers through the hair, the ticks might be right there, because one night I was ready to go to sleep and for some reason I brushed through my hair and I found a tick. And I thought, oops, didn't pay attention, because all I did was go out in the garden, pick something up, and went back in the house. But there were trees, and probably I bent down, and the ticks usually don't go high in trees, but they go up on our chicken coop. We found them there on the roof.
Oh, wow.
Waiting to go down. They must have crawled up the side. So there's lots about ticks, I think, that we don't really realize they do.
Well, exactly. And I mean, they could have fallen off birds up there as well. So it's difficult. I mean, you can do just about anything to your yard. And there's a lot of things you can do to your yard to reduce the amount of ticks. But, if a bird flies in and feeds on bugs in your yard, they could drop a tick or two. And
sure.
So there's no way to totally prevent it.
Yeah, and I think that, as you said, there shouldn't be panic about it, and you don't spray chemicals all over you and your kids and the lawn. It doesn't really do something. The ticks will get resistant against it eventually. And I feel that's a good tip to really, every time you were outside, go in and check everything, put the clothes in the dryer, and because it happens, and it happened to me too. I didn't put the clothes in the dryer, and I sat in the living room chair, and there was something crawling on my arm, and it was a tick. Hey,
yes, it's quite a thing, and you really do have to just be always aware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not panic, because they're just little bugs.
Exactly.
I like that very much, and I would like to go a little bit more into what actually are symptoms that should lead you to suspect that you might have Lyme disease or associated disease, and how to get tested for it properly. That we go in the second half. But I just want to know what would get somebody to say, maybe I should consider it, and then we'll talk about in the second half where they should go and what should be done.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing, especially as it has progressed, or if it has progressed, the symptoms tend to come and go. One day you might have a left knee issue. The next day you might have a right elbow issue. One day your vision may be a little bit off, or you might have, a stiff neck one day. They come and go, and each day you just don't really know which symptom is going to be. And that's as it has progressed a bit.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, initial symptoms are flu-like and a possible rash. But a lot of people think if they don't get a rash, they're fine, they're covered, but not everybody gets a rash. So
yeah. What about fatigue? Do people tired when they have the infection, or not so much?
They can. As I said, everybody, again, is different. Some people are extremely fatigued, and other people are, it comes and go again. I really do feel for the doctors, because it is they are difficult illnesses to diagnose if you aren't looking at everything at once. Mm-hmm. And many of our doctors in Nova Scotia look at things one symptom at a time, and they try to treat one symptom at a time rather than looking at the whole picture. And that's where we really need to have changes in the way we look at this, because it's a multi-systemic illness. All of the co-infections are multi-systemic. So you really need to look at all of them together.
Yes.
And look at the full picture, and not just one symptom at a time.
And that is so important. So basically everybody that has aches and pains and maybe get told it's all in your head, maybe it isn't. Maybe you should get a second opinion from an integrative or functional or physician that is also a naturopath or something like that. And then go forward and get the right tests. And we will talk more about that the second half.
Okay.
So this brings us to the end of the first half of today's broadcast here on 97.5 CIOE-FM Community Radio. Please tune in after the commercial break for more about Lyme disease with Donna Lugar. Thank you. Hello and welcome back to Healthy Alternatives here on 97.5 CIOE-FM or on the web at communityradio.ca. I'm your host, Dr. Christine Sauer, and today I'm talking with Donna Lugar about Lyme disease. And that is a very necessary topic and has to be made more public about that. It's so common, really, and associated tick-borne diseases, and you're a specialist for that. And you told me in the break that there's a conference coming up in May 5th, I think?
Saturday,
Tell
May
us
5th.
about that.
It's Saturday, May 5th. It's our second annual Lyme Information Awareness event. And it's at Ondaatje Hall in Dalhousie University from 2 to 6 p.m. And we have some great speakers. We have Dr. Vet Lloyd from Mount Allison University. We have Andrew Hebda from the Museum of Natural History. We have teams from Dalhousie University that will be showing some of their recent research. And our keynote speaker is going to be very exciting. It's Mary Beth Pfeiffer. She's a journalist in the States, and she has recently written a book which comes out in April called Lyme, the First Epidemic of Climate Change. And I think it'll be very eye-opening, some of the things that she has to say and what's in her book. And she will have a book signing at the end of the event as well. So it should be very informative. As I said, Andrew Hebda is very knowledgeable about the ticks and where they are, and the Dr. Vet Lloyd, of course, is one of our most eminent Lyme aware people in the Atlantic provinces. So it should be a very interesting event.
Yeah, and I recommend everybody that's interested in the topic to attend that. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about what should people do to get diagnosed if they feel they might have Lyme disease?
Well, there is a test that's done in Canada and in Nova Scotia. It's not 100% accurate, but you can ask for it. And it's the ELISA or ELISA. It's ELISA. That is the first test, and that is done here. It's just a blood test. And if that test comes back positive or equivocal, your blood is then sent out to Winnipeg for a Western blot. So that's a confirmatory test. As I said, the ELISA has sensitivity and specificity limitations, and there are a variety of reasons.
What does it mean?
There's a variety of reasons why it might come back as a false negative.
Okay.
It could be too early and the antibodies have not formed yet because it's an antibody test. It usually takes 4 to 6 weeks for antibodies to form after the bite. And in some people it even takes longer, or they don't even form them. It could be a different type of bacteria that you've picked up. There are at least 2 that are in Nova Scotia, and only one of them, the Borrelia burgdorferi, is the only one that the test actually picks up. The other one, and please excuse my pronunciations for some of these words.
That's fine.
The Borrelia miyamotoi, that has been found in ticks in Nova Scotia, but it isn't picked up in that test. So it's a different bacteria. It's too early. And I've also read in the Canadian Adverse Reaction newsletter about Lyme disease test kits that if you've had antibiotics, it can also affect the test. So there's a variety of reasons why it might be a false negative. And
false negative means that you really have Lyme disease, but the test comes back and the doctor tells you don't.
Exactly. I mean, there's actually a law in a couple of the states in the U.S. that doctors have to tell their patients if their test comes back negative, it does not necessarily mean you don't have Lyme disease.
Interesting. Good to know. So what really is there a definitive test that proves for once and for all that you do have it?
Not that's undertaken in Canada right now. So there are other labs that do a better quality test. There are a variety of different tests, but in Canada we only do those 2 tests, unfortunately. Naturopaths may have a few different tests that they may try as well, but you have to pay for those out of pocket, of course. So,
well, many people that have diseases that last for a longer time get so desperate they don't care. They go to the States to get tested.
Yes.
So it would be probably a good idea to talk to you or someone from your organization first to see what what really they are looking for.
Well, exactly. And I mean, we do have private labs. There's one in Germany, Armin Labs. There's one in California, iGenex. A lot of people do utilize those labs to obtain a diagnosis. However, doctors here do not accept that information. They don't believe that these labs are accurate. They're giving too many, they call them false positives, but they're giving a lot of positives. So if you have those tests done, you won't be able to take them to your doctor and say, look, I have a definitive test, because they're just going to say, I don't believe in that test. So it's money coming out of your pocket, and it's really for your own information, or that your naturopaths may be interested in it. Or if you go to what they call a Lyme literate medical doctor, they sometimes require the testing. However, most of the Lyme literate medical doctors just diagnose you based on your symptoms.
Yeah. Well, I know in the beginning, antibiotics can cure most cases of Lyme disease. What is the treatment for later stages when it hasn't been caught in the beginning, or it was not long enough the course, the wrong antibiotic, or it just didn't work?
Well, that's a controversial answer. I mean, a lot of people believe you need to take long-term antibiotics, but even those don't necessarily work for everybody. So right now, there's people out there trying any number of things to try to get well. Even recent research suggests that the standard antibiotics that are used, like doxycycline and amoxicillin, they don't eradicate all of the Borrelia. They actually leave some that are still in your body. So you would want your immune system to be able to fight the remaining bacteria, but because your immune system has been depleted, it's very difficult. So, certainly naturopaths and alternative healthcare, they're trying to build up your immune system so that your body can actually fight the resultant bacteria. So, as I said, it's not a cut and dried answer. There's so many different treatment protocols out there, even amongst the variety of Lyme literate doctors. They do different things, and they do different supplements along with or instead of the antibiotics. So unfortunately, at this time, we really don't know what standard, I don't think there ever will be a standard treatment, because every person I've spoken to has different symptoms. Even if it's just just Lyme disease, but they may have different symptoms because of how their body has reacted to the bacteria, where the bacteria went in their body. Some people, their joints will be extremely affected because the bacteria went right to their joints, maybe because they already had a pre-existing condition in those joints, and the bacteria heads right towards those problem areas, apparently. And
it's always an interplay of disposition, infection, and immune system.
Exactly. It's a total.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because Lyme disease, as a spirochetal disease like syphilis, is one of the big chameleons of medicine. That was syphilis and still is to a certain amount. And Lyme disease is very much more prevalent nowadays than syphilis, sexually transmitted disease.
Exactly. And there is research to suggest, it hasn't been fully confirmed yet, but that Lyme disease could be sexually transmitted. It can be transmitted from mother to fetus. So there's still a lot of research that needs to be undertaken, but there...
And it makes sense, because why shouldn't the same rules apply to this spirocheta that causes syphilis than to the Lyme disease producing?
Exactly. And it's been around for millions of years, this bacteria.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
It got its name, Lyme, in Lyme, Connecticut, because of the group of children and people that had the arthritis. But it's been around. It's been found in amber. It's been found in the Otzi, the Iceman. It's been around for a long time. So a lot of our present day autoimmune illnesses may have some background or basis in
infections. What kind of if it's Lyme disease or other infections, that is very true, and I believe that too. And that's why combined conventional and naturopathic treatment often works the best.
Yes, exactly.
And I completely agree with that. And there should be more collaboration in the medical field. And yes, we're getting in politics a little bit about that, but I think there need to be more recognition that many patients nowadays are empowered They learn about what could be, and they expect answers from the doctor, not just, oh, it's all in your head.
Exactly. And then I did get that a few times.
Yeah, I deal with many clients that get that, and usually it's something else. And that was great. Thank you so much for coming to today's show. It's a real pleasure to have you here. And I hope that many people that feel that they have Lyme disease go to the website, Canadian Lyme Disease Foundation, to look you up and get in contact. Go to the Lyme support group. I don't think you have to have Lyme disease to get there.
No, not at all. It's open to everybody.
So that is good. You have a group on Facebook too. What's it called?
The Facebook page that I have is Lyme disease in Nova Scotia and the Atlantic provinces. There's a few other things there. Mm-hmm. The next support group meeting, we meet the second Monday of every month. So we're in Bedford.
Perfect. And this brings me to the end of today's show. Please don't hesitate to contact me with any questions, thoughts, comments, or suggestions, or if you'd like to contact Donna. My email here is Christine, Christine, at communityradio.ca, and I'm always grateful for feedback. I also want to extend a special thank you to today's producer, Jim Francis. Thanks, Jim. You're the best. You might not know this, but this is a volunteer-run non-profit radio station, and we even have an art gallery. If you're local, and if you'd like to drop in, we are at 11 Glendale Avenue, Lower Sackville, Nova Scotia. Thank you all for listening to Healthy Alternatives. I'm your host, Dr. Christine Sauer. Tune in next Thursday at noon on 97.5 CRE FM Community Radio with live stream on communityradio.ca for the next episode. Goodbye and have a great day.